Hey, Michael, thanks for coming on. Can you, before we get started, can you tell our listeners a little bit about yourself?
Yeah. Hi, everyone. I'm Michael Bair. I'm the founder of Bair Consulting. We help e-commerce brands and SaaS businesses build customer experiences that their customers love, that they don't worry about. And if you're an e-commerce business doing 20 million a year revenue or more, or a SaaS business doing $1 million of ARR or more, I'd love to chat with you.
I'm Ibby Syed.
I'm Sean Collins.
And this is Numbers and Narratives.
Super nice guy. One of the things that I want to talk about, and something that I think is really interesting, is you talk quite a lot on LinkedIn and across sort of like wherever. I think I've seen you at like a conference too, about humanizing customer support. Like there's a lot of companies out there, especially with sort of like this AI boom, where it's like, hey, like we will, like, you don't have to have frontline support agents anymore. Klarna kind of like felt this the worst pretty recently. But one of the things that's really interesting is you kind of talk a lot about the opposite, where we should be providing great customer support. We should be providing a great experience. That's what leads to retention. And I wonder, like, how much of that is from your time actually working on the customer success side, right? Like you do have a lot of these like very, very high touch, like very, very important relationships. I don't actually know what Service Titan's like breakdown is from a like more PLG type CS, scaled CS org to like an enterprise CS org. But I wonder like if you can kind of talk about your background and kind of the positioning behind kind of what you talk about, if that makes sense.
I feel like I could take us in a lot of different directions, but like to start, I would say part of the reason that I care so much about like people side of it is because it's why I have the career I have. So I started my career in inside sales for a huge bank. I was working at a call center. Like it was true inside sales. Like we sent out mailers, customers call it in to get financial products. We had to like sell them on those financial products. And so I was an inside sales specialist, and then became manager, and then became center leader, and I led a team of 50 really And like, to be honest with you, I really wasn't my best self. Like I was in my 20s, like I was working in like a high pressure sales role. So, I kind of look back on some of the ways that I led those teams and don't feel great about it. But I learned a lot through it. And then, kind of continue that. Like I then got my first kind of customer service job because I knew how to do sales. It was a largely retention based role. So I learned how to do all of that. And a couple things kind of came to light to me. For one, I kind of saw that if we hired what I call people with PhDs, passionate, hungry, and driven, we hired recent college grads that are passionate, hungry, and driven to grow in their career, care about the brand, care about the company. Those people not only deliver a great customer experience, but also because they learn so much in customer support and customer service, become a great feeder for the rest of the organization. So I saw this at Energy Plus. At Inspire was probably the place where we did this the best. Like I had like a 17-1 promotion to attrition rate there. But at one point, there was like 25 former customer experience associates in other departments, and it was every department other than finance and technology and engineering. Like we had people in product marketing, operations, the EA team, like literally everywhere. And so the personal side of me is like, I feel like I benefited from companies that invested in people. I built programs and structures and stuff, and saw the companies that I worked for also benefit from those things. Like a lot of Inspire's success was because of the company. And like at one point I had hired like a third of the company at like 100 employees. I would bet at 100 employees, there was a point where a quarter to a third of all the employees came through customer experience, or we called it member experience. And that company exited. So like, I think we did a great job there. So that's like
side note, I don't know if you've ever used like Looker as a BI tool. In the early days of Looker, we bought them when I was at Peloton, and they did the exact same thing. They basically just set up, they hired folks out of UC Santa Cruz. They had a big sort of like college style corporate Santa Cruz office. And it was just kids that were like pretty smart technically, but they just provided like unparalleled customer support. There were times where I got my start on a BI team, like a business intelligence team, and they'd spend time with me into the wee hours of the morning trying to like debug some weird problem I was having with a dashboard of all things. And it was like having friends. Like they did such a good job, and it's gone now because of the Google acquisition. But we're one of our sort of friendly companies, Omni, they're kind of just doing the Looker thing again, and they're running the exact same playbook. It's just that provide unparalleled customer support, and people will just like continue to be with you. It's that edge, right? Like you can't put it on a balance sheet, but that customer love is the reason why we stuck with them for so long.
There's that people side. Then the other part, the business side, is if you're a B2C company or if you're also a B2B company, I think most businesses don't realize how marginally better their products are from their next competitor. Like it's incrementally, it's like your widget is 1% better than the next widget. And so like, I think there are some breakout technologies, and those companies probably don't have to care about customer experience as much, don't have to care about customer support, customer success as much, because their technology, Google, Meta, you can think about these, their platforms are so valuable. They don't care if you have anyone you can reach unless you're spending $100 million a year with them, because you're not going AWS. Like they don't worry about that. 99% of businesses are not that. And so your customer experience is actually the brand. It's the differentiator for you. It builds your brand, it builds customer trust, it builds customer loyalty. And particularly in B2B, in early days of businesses, they should only be concerned about two things. I have a client that is a super early stage software company, incredible growth, products phenomenal. And I'm helping them on their customer success. And the only two things I tell them, all we should be caring about is creating raving fans that renew and refer other customers. Because if you can build that flywheel with those early customers and make them tell everyone they know, in B2B particularly, because you're often, unless you're super horizontal where your customers don't really know other, but assuming that you're somewhat vertical, if you become the operating system, the brand, the blah, blah, blah of that sector early on, the rest of your sales motions become so much easier.
Side note, we were talking about Eli earlier. I think that that's kind of the playbook that Yotpo is taking. I think that Yotpo is like kind of potentially like, I have never used them. So I will say like I've always been on the sort of like software side, but things I've heard from some of our other customers is that it wasn't the best product or the best team to work with before. And I think that they're really doing that sort of like, hey, we are going to be a complete platform with great unparalleled experiences, and you're just going to kind of love us, and you will pay the premium because you like us.
The e-commerce tech stack is full of that. If you think of like Yotpo's reviews versus Judge Me versus Bazaar Voice, like their feature sets are just so darn comparable. Klaviyo versus SendGrid, like yes, there are differences, but like they're not light speeds ahead of other people. Shopify is different. Shopify is a platform, like that you can't replace that. But I think this is honestly why the e-com SaaS space is so challenging, is they don't realize how marginally different they're just so similar.
There's so many things that have popped up, right? So every brand or every tech platform, every app, every SaaS for e-com in particular that was massively differentiated a decade ago isn't they've just closed the gap. I'm like, oh, that's a feature that people like, then we recreate that feature, something adjacent to it, right? Like it's very hard for a feature to be a moat. And at the end of the day, we talk a lot about surprise and delight as just like a concept. Like how do you scale surprise and delight? And at the end of the day, like you don't do that with the product, right? Like that surprise and delight happens through human interactions and through the things that a customer experience or customer support person does, or it's like a handwritten letter. It's like that. It's the human moments in interacting with a brand or being a customer that are what drive like rabid obsession, right? Like we had a guy named Alan who wanted to talk about a bunch of Braze stuff. I love Braze, huge fan. When Ibby asked like, what are the features of Braze that make you love it so much? I like kind of faltered because most of the features have been copycatted in some way by other platforms. And now it really just like, I like the team. They make me like, I have a brand affinity for them. It's incredible.
Yeah. Usually what you'll see, and you guys know this really well, but like people kind of like find the product that they love. They find the tools, they take those with other businesses, but it's not the feature set. It's the experience, it's their domain knowledge with it. You're just like, you're going to have a hard time winning. I think, especially like as we look out in the future with AI making this even easier, you're going to have a hard time winning out strictly on feature set. And so I think customer experience is so important. And it's just, I just see a massive opportunity in the market to help. And this is why I started my consultancy, is I personally feel very grateful for working in customer experience. I've personally seen, I've been fortunate enough to be a part of 2 IPOs, two exits to M&A. I've seen how valuable customer experience, member experience can be for a business. And I, want to help founders of early stage e-com and SaaS businesses do that same thing.
One question for you, and Sean, I think this goes for you too, because you've spent a lot of time working in e-com. Do you guys think that, and this is kind of something that I have a take on, but I'm not sure is the way of the world, but I think that e-com buyers are even they're more price sensitive than sort of software buyers at non-e-commerce businesses, right? If you're a software company, your margins are higher. You're used to spending on technology. And I think that a lot of these Shopify SaaS businesses revenues come from the customers that pay a lot of money. And those customers are kind of a much smaller portion of the pool of the overall sort of Shopify base. And so that retention super, super matters for them, where if people are just trying to solve a problem with them, they're just going to go with the cheapest option. And so your sort of champion customers, the ones that shout about you, the ones that spent real money, those folks you really have to spend a lot of time with, and you have to provide sort of an unparalleled experience. Is that kind of an accurate take, or no?
Yeah. Sean, why don't you take this one first? I'm going to pull up something that I think really exemplifies that.
Ibby, are you talking about the Shopify brand to consumers, or you're talking about tech platforms for Shopify brands?
Sorry, yeah, tech platforms. That's a great question. Tech platforms specifically, right?
Yeah. So you can have a solid business having a decent app that it's good enough and cheap enough that people aren't going to bother churning because it's $10 a month, right? And you can play the scale game and just get gobble up the long tail of SMBs on Shopify. But you will almost never be differentiated. You're not going to really be able to build out a full team because your price is $10, $15, whatever it is. Or you can go the opposite side and try and serve the 1% of brands that are doing, more than $250 million a year or something like that, right? And if you're doing that side, then you are a proper SaaS company. But your TAM is very small, especially if it's Shopify specific, right? So if Shopify is just one portion of your customer pool and you also can serve other things, then sure, it's just that one vertical. And so you have an e-com support team and kind of treat them that way. If it's just Shopify or just e-com, then your TAM is so limited that you had better be hiring copy and paste Michael to have, and Michael has 3 accounts is all he thinks about, and everybody is just obsessed with their 3 clients, right?
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. Yeah, the stats that I was just pulling up. So 103,000 Shopify stores do $1 million a year of revenue. That's nothing. You that's not your full-time job. 12,000 do $5 million a year. You're still not a full-time job. 6,000 do 10 million. 2,400 do 20 million. So now we're at the place where this could be a full-time job for you. How many do you think do over 100 million a year? Shopify stores?
I'd say 500.
500 on the nose. So, and honestly, if you just think about it, at 500 stores that are doing 100 million, and this is 100 million plus, but if you're doing 100 million and your EBITDA margin is in the single digits, you're talking about 5 figures in EBITDA a year. That's tough. That is a tough business. And so, yeah, but I bet you if you get to how many do 500, when I was at Figs, we were doing 550. Different scale. You can really invest in your own fulfillment. You can really invest in tools. You can really invest in people. But I would bet in that 500, it's probably 100 stores that maybe do might not even do that do $500 million or more. And so if your software is only for enterprise e-com, it's 100 companies.
Yeah, that's insane.
And if you're, you start to do the math. If you're venture backed, 100 stores, you sell them, let's say 50K ACVs, like this is just not a venture backed business. So like not only is e-com not venture backable, the SaaS, if it's only for Shopify stores, is almost not either. That's why like Klaviyo is such a like a great example of like of course they dominate e-commerce, but they've quickly figured out we can't only be Shopify. We've got to serve a much bigger TAM. You brought up Braze, Iterable. They just all figured out that like the Shopify TAM is great if you want to be an SMB tool, but it's not great if you want to be an enterprise tool.
If there are two things that are true, you need to provide an unparalleled customer experience as your differentiator. Let's move to we can talk about both software companies and e-commerce businesses in the same vein on this one. If it's both true that you need to provide an unparalleled level of customer support to be able to differentiate yourself and have high retention, and it's very difficult to invest in people and technology to be able to do that, or let's just say people for now, right? Like we can't just like throw humans at the problem because we make slim margins. Where do you think AI has a place, right? Like what is our sort of like customer experience AI future? Like who's doing it well, who's not doing it well? Where do you see kind of the ideal sort of integration with AI for CX teams, and where do you think that they really should not be used?
Yeah, I personally think at this current stage, people are dramatically overblowing the AI for customer support case. So yeah, you brought up the Klarna one earlier. That I never went from not caring about a company to hating a company as much as like Klarna, because for 30 days I kind of heard nothing, but I'm like, this was a press release from a privately held company. We have no way to verify any of this is true. They filed to go public. And now it looks like actually this is like pretty verifiable. Fintech companies are very different than others. Like the high touch nature of fintech companies, like, great for Klarna for investing. And it sounds like they built a lot of internal tools to service a lot of these use cases. But I would say for most businesses, not Klarna, the immediate use cases for AI in the CX space is around like voice of the customer. So being able to read social surveys, tickets, and really know what your customer sentiment are, like what they love, what they don't love, product specific details, like to be able to do that at a mass scale, AI can do that so well. I don't know if there's a tool, like I work with Medallion, Qualtrics a little bit with some of my clients. Most of them are still using pretty basic like NPL, text analytics. They're not, maybe a little bit, but it's still, I think that's a big opportunity, and like probably we'll get there in the next year or two. And a lot of that still depends on can they get access to social networks? So Meta and others are of course like not very interested in giving APIs to scrape all of their data. But as a brand, particularly like when I was at Figs, we had 1 million followers on Instagram. We were getting tons of engagement on all of our posts. Like being able to use that data for voice of the customer is so important. So that's one. Second is definitely like Copilot tools. So giving agents a resource that they can constantly query and ask questions to, query the knowledge base, query the help center, just basically find the answers that they need to. And, you would say, oh, why don't you just put that customer facing? It's like, well, there's just some things that like policy procedures wise, you don't want to put customer facing. So it being a customer pilot or a Copilot tool is quite valuable. Then there's the last stage, which again, is the one I think is probably overblown today, but I do think we'll get there soon in the next like 12, 24 months, which is putting an AI chatbot tool customer facing. I still think there's a big question of do consumers want this? So we've had chatbot tools for a decade now. They are notoriously hated. There's tons of Gartner and Forrester studies that show like 80% of consumers hate chatbots. And people will say, well, that was pre-gen AI. Well, that's still the brand of chatbots. So like, do either of you like chatting with chatbots?
No. I mean, there's very, very simple stuff that like is replacing like a like I'm fine with it if it's like, hey, where's my order? Right. If I'm like wondering if they haven't sent me an email and I don't know where their portal is, or I'm doing it on my phone, maybe for those experiences. But like, no, like Delta is a really good example of this. Like Delta has a customer support bot, and I have to fly a lot for work. And, it makes me math. Like I'm not like I don't spend $1 million a year with Delta. I'm a crappy startup founder. I buy economy seats. I don't even fly business class, but like I have their status or whatever, and they've given me this number on the back, and it makes me mad every time even I call that specific number for platinum, whatever the heck they call it. Like, it still makes me go through this like chatbot. I'm like, no, like, you know that this isn't going to work. Like, I have a flight that was delayed. You still haven't sent me a message. I have to make it to this thing on time. I just want to, like, I know the flight I want to book, and I know it's this one. Your chatbot won't let me do it, and your UI won't let me do it. Just like talk to a human, because they're always great, but you have to go through like this rigmarole for 20 minutes before you actually get to them. It's really annoying.
Yeah, most people don't like chatbots, and you brought up a really good example, which is, and this is one of my this is one of the questions I have, which is the UI of a chatbot going to work when everyone just is doing this all day? I guess for those listening, I'm holding up my phone. So if you are on a company's website and I got to bring up a chatbot that now takes over the whole screen, and I need the data, I need the information that's behind the screen to be able to interface with the chatbot, wasn't that a UX UI problem? And no one seems to like, everyone's showing all these examples, and I think they're just honestly using desktop versions. And I'm like, but that's not how people interact with customer support, customer service, customer experience. So I think there's still an open question of like, do people want to interact with a chatbot as a text-based window? I don't know. But I think there's tons of great use cases. There's tons of low value, high volume interactions, like where's my order tickets, but they still all require some level of information about the customer. Either they're in a logged in status, or you're giving a couple pieces of identifying information, and that friction is just like not great. I think people like kind of go to ChatGPT, like I just asked my question. It's like, look, that experience doesn't work if ChatGPT doesn't know your order, doesn't know who you are, and that's what you need in customer support to make it look good. So it will get there. I assume they will figure this out, but the idea that everyone can just go be Klarna today and deflect 60 to 70% of their tickets, like I have a lot of conversations with people in my network, and I almost know none that are seeing 60, 70% deflection.
I want to talk about deflection, but I also have a question first. So dibs on the next topic being deflection. But before we get there, how do you feel about not necessarily AI things, but like IVR then, right? It's like, 'cause like I feel like sometimes a chat bot, that interface of, hey, like when you do the Delta business chat through Apple texting, right? You're just texting. You still have to like log in through the and all that. And to me, yeah, there's some level of friction, but I also recognize that if you don't have that, then Ibby could just text into support and be like, what's Sean's, here's my confirmation number, what's, whatever. Like, I don't want that either. So I recognize that I accept the friction to get to an identified state. So are you okay with that level of friction, like with an IVR, because it does bring efficiency to getting the right human being on the phone instead of it being like, because being transferred a bazillion times, even if you're talking to a human, is trash too.
Wait, Sean, before you go any further, can you define IVR for the listeners who might not know?
Yes, I will not tell you the acronym. You can Google that, and that's simply because I forgot. But it's something about interactive voice recording, maybe. It is essentially like press 1 if this is what you want to talk about. Press 2 for this.
They're similar to chatbots in that IVRs have a terrible brand. They have a terrible, like, people hate them. People are just like notorious, like agent 0. So like they have that same challenge where, because this technology has existed for 2 decades, people hate it. To now say, oh, it's all better, everyone just use this. It's like most people just don't want to. And so, yeah, I think there is some opportunity. I think the other thing is like businesses today still aren't omni-channel. And so I enter all this information into the IVR, they route me to the right team, and then that team member still asks me all that same information. It's like, you're not omni-channel. Like you're not connecting all of those pieces so that by the time I get to Joe doesn't really have to verify anything, because I just verified it in the IVR. I can just get right to the question with him. So yeah, I think those are all great. They're all great tools. They all have history that will take consumers to get over them. I think the whole customer service industry in general has that challenge. It's like, it's a lot of people don't like interacting with them because the tools haven't been there. There's policies that like penalize the majority of consumers to avoid these minority of outcomes. there's a lot of challenges that exist in kind of creating great customer experiences for people because of, just the way that technology and businesses have handled that. But I'm optimistic, and I still think I still think there's tons of opportunity to make those experiences great. And that's also like, kind of on that topic, like I really held myself to like, I won't build policies, I won't build procedures, I won't build processes for the minority of people that might like try to screw you or try to do fraud or try to like just take advantage of the situation. Like I'm just not going to build experiences for that. I'm going to build it for the majority because those are the people that are going to build your business.
When like your flight's delayed and you're sitting in line and everyone's upset because everyone has the most important trip. It's amazing how your plane is always everyone is going to the most important place.
Yes.
And so you go up and you're super polite and you're saying like, hey, I recognize you didn't cancel my flight. And now you have to get 400 people on flight planes that are already sold out.
Yeah.
And they'll be like, okay, your next plane's in like 4 weeks because whatever, we reschedule you for a month from now. And then the person behind you starts like screaming and you hear them get like business class or an upgrade or something like that. Like is that kind of what you're talking about of like not building your CS team for the minority? It's more of like, how can we reward the right behaviors too and like build in good habits? Or like when you talk about the minority of things, is it just like edge case, like, treating everyone like an edge case, or what are you kind of talking about there?
It's a lot of companies build policies, scripting. It's like, why do I have to verify 3 pieces of information? Because of these, like, because of the 1.1% chance that someone's not, like if I only verify 2, it gets me to a 0.1% opportunity of fraud. So yeah, so I think if when you're writing policies, when you're writing return policies, exceptions, pricing and SaaS, renewals, expansions, like I can just go through endless examples where businesses write, like you would swear lawyers had the only opinion in like what was the right way to write this. They write it for this very small, minute opportunity for someone to take advantage of the system. And yes, I think your example of like some examples where rewarding bad behavior by consumers is probably a good example of that too. Like if the customer says the F word, do this. Like literally, I've seen these policies where like they make customers act like jerks. They reward that behavior, and then they penalize the 99% of consumers who like your brand, who want to do the right thing, and just don't want it to be so darn hard to do business with you. So yeah, I think I really, and a good example was at Figs because we were serving healthcare professionals generally, like wonderful, caring, just honest people. We really benefit. Like I could really over-index on that because it's just like the chances for like fraud were just almost nil. So we could really lean into, hey, just assume positive intent from the customer and do what's right for them. Like they're not gonna take advantage of us.
I love that. Yeah, it is interesting. See, I mean, it probably is largely, or to a large extent, industry by industry, right? Like, I just came from a fintech company, and so there are the risks of fraud are greater, right? Like,
yep.
Not to this is not supposed to be a slight, but like the fraud at Figs is like, okay, so we sent someone the wrong pair of scrubs they shouldn't have gotten or something like that, right?
Yeah, we gave them a refund and they sent us back a box of rocks. But like literally, if that happens 1 out of 100,000 times, that's worth it to make the 99,999 customers easier. Like I'll give you a really tangible example. E-com businesses that refund on carrier scan versus getting it back to the warehouse and QCing it. Okay. So the default is like, well, we have to do it at the warehouse because what if they send us back a box of rocks? What if they send us back nothing? What if they measure how often that happens, and is that worth penalizing? Like think about the brand equity you build by making an easy, fast returns policy, and getting that second order from the customer versus like Zappos is a great example of this. Zappos like notoriously like they will process your refund immediately. maybe they still don't, because Amazon maybe has changed that. But for the longest time, they would actually process it immediately because I'm sure they figured out the amount of people that are trying to like take advantage of the system are very small. And so that's, I think, fintech's a different situation, but I think most companies overestimate the downside and don't realize the pain and friction that they cause customers and how much loyalty they're losing by doing that.
You brought up measurement, and so that makes me think about something that we were literally, me, Tom, and Ibby were talking yesterday about KPIs, and how deflection rate is a KPI that at face level makes sense to like prioritize the idea of someone could self-service an answer, and so we don't actually need to talk to them, and that's a great thing. We got them an answer faster, and they great. But what it can't account for is how often the deflection is just someone giving up exasperated and saying like, screw this. And maybe it's a small question like, where is my order? And like, I'm not going to wait, and it'll get here eventually. Maybe it's big enough that they're like, well, I'm going to churn off the subscription, or I'm just going to complain about it. And we all know that a detractor costs more than a fan benefits. And so when you think about whether it's deflection rate or kind of at a broader basis, I think we're getting to a place where we can measure so many more things than we used to be able to, whether that's through implication and kind of like modeling or through actual measurement of touch points now that everything is so digital. Are there KPIs that are common in the industry and shouldn't be anymore? How do you think about constructing the right dashboard, the right measurement system, the right set of priorities for a team?
Yeah, that's a great question. So deflection has its like roots in self-service tools. So if you have a help center and someone goes search for a help center, they click on an article and then they never, contact your customer support team, that's like deflection. I think that's like the good example of deflection. So I think it's like it's not a bad thing. I think you bring up the example, which is the bad deflection, which is people giving up. So to use a SaaS as an example, so because you brought up Looker earlier. So I built a Looker dashboard. There's some feature, there's some bug, or there's some aspect of it that I don't understand. I chat into support. I'm going back and forth with them on the chatbot, and I just kind of give up. And that company counts as a deflection. I now take that dashboard into a presentation, and someone's like, hey, what is wrong with ABC? And I'm like, I don't know. It's this Looker. And now everyone in the room has a negative perception of Looker. And this is what businesses don't evaluate, is when they cause deflection, it's not just free. It's you've diminished the brand equity and the value that the customer has. And so it's really important that when you're looking at your deflection, it's like, is it deflected because of because it's resolved, or is it deflected because the customer gave up? Those are two different things. To answer your more specific question around like the dashboards, yeah, I think there's tons of examples like average handle time, anything, or a lot of metrics around speed and deflection, decreasing contact rates. Like those are outcomes. That's not really, I think, what most people should be looking at. I think what most businesses fail to do, and this is usually like somewhat of because either the data infrastructure doesn't exist or the CX leader just doesn't think about it this way, but it's really measuring the impact of their customer experience. So really good example, if I were an e-commerce business, is I would come up with all these different cohort analyses that say, show me the repeat purchase rate and the LTVs of customers who have not contacted customer support and have contacted by phone, by chat, interacted with our AI chatbot, interacted with our help center, follow us on Instagram, and then also look at them on the same order trajectory, to use an e-com example. So give me a customer who's ordered 5 times, who's interacted with our AI chatbot, and give me a customer who's never acted with the AI chatbot and also ordered 5 times. And then look at their LTVs, look at their AOVs, look at their repeat purchase rates. So take every single one of those touch points with a customer and compare someone who's had that touch point, same order frequency, you can do it in SaaS too, same number of months on book, customers that are on the same package, whatever it is, and then start to measure and start to figure out which of your touch points actually make better customers. Because if my best customers are people that contact my customer support team, that have interactions with my AI chatbot, that have contacted my customer support team, my help center, follow us on Instagram, then you should be optimizing your customer experience to do all of those things and not trying to decrease contact rate. Like, why would you decrease something that actually increases customer loyalty, increases your chance to renew or upsell the customer? Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. It's like healthy friction, which is an underrated thing. But then also, looking at the business outcome, not a sort of like vanity metric of the interaction itself.
All engagement is not bad engagement. And suddenly, I think this is not so much the case in customer success for SaaS business, because I think they recognize, like, most of the time you're interacting with customers, you're actually helping them use the software. And so it's more valuable. But yeah, particularly in the e-com B2C world, it's like every touch point is just cost. And it's like, it's not. It actually can increase loyalty and increase retention.
This is really, really interesting that you bring this up, because we, for people that listen to the podcast regularly, like Sean and I both work for Coterra. We're a company that helps work more on the back office side of customer experience. One of the things that we find is that there's two types of customers we talk to. There's ones that are, the company treats customer experience as an entirely cost center. This is something that we need to sink money into, and we want to sink the least amount of money into. And then there are companies that operate a little bit differently, where the customer experience leader is actually like the person that's closest to the customer. They understand the ICP the best. And so they're involved in marketing decisions, right? Like, how do we talk to these people? Like, what are their pain points? Like, the CX leader knows, right? Like, that you knew at Figs, like, what the customers liked about the product and didn't like about the product, because you were on top of reviews, you were on top of customer support tickets, you knew voice of the customer. Product is obviously on top of it, right? Like, which products are being the most damaged? Where do we have to, like, sew them better, right? Like, there's so many companies where they're now starting to treat customer experience as this almost like learning center, and they're starting to invest back in it. We were talking to a business that is in the elder care space, and there are so many of their customers actually call in, right? Like, they don't know how to, they're generally older, they don't know how to text, they don't know how to use websites. It's a subscription model for sort of like products for you as you get older. And they're like, we actually now treat our customer experience team almost like a concierge plus an inside sales team, right? When somebody calls in, our emails don't get that, like, our email upsell rate isn't that high because not that many people are doing it. But if we're answering their questions and we're trying to help them and we're trying to help them solve their pain points, and we put in, hey, by the way, like, here's a product that you're likely to want or buy because you're calling it about X thing. They have their recommendation engine piped into Zendesk. So whenever they pull up a customer profile, it'll say, hey, this is actually like a good set of products to talk about. And they're not pushy about it. And they actually have a really, really high upsell rate from their customer experience team. And so suddenly, like, you're using it to bring more value to the customer, bring more value to the business, and that opportunity that you might have wasted through an AI chatbot. If you've got the right tools and the right information at your disposal, your human agents can turn that sort of like experience into both something that is going to create a fan for life and a potential business opportunity.
Businesses are constantly looking for ways to engage customers: emails, SMS, postcards, out-of-home activations. Meanwhile, 10, 20, 30% of their customers are calling them, emailing, and chatting with them every single day. And so you bring up a really good point, which is like, look, you can either, and I think this is where the branding and the mindset that CX leaders have, like, I've always really tried to focus on like what's right, what do customers love, like why are they contacting us to tell us, like what good are they calling about? Because a lot of CX leaders, unfortunately, just like they deal with a lot of things that are going wrong, and then that's all they seem to talk to other people in the business about is everything that's going wrong, and you just eventually start to get tuned out. I really tried to balance like what was wrong and talk more about like what do customers love, what do they, what features are they looking for, what brings them joy, what creates referrals, so that when people view the interactions we have with customers, they view them in a positive light and as an opportunity, and not as just something to be resolved as quickly and as cheaply as possible.
That's incredible. I love that. And I think, unfortunately, we've only got a couple minutes left. So I think that might be what we have to end on. Michael, before we go, can you tell us a little bit more about your consulting service? We'd love,
Sure.
Please plug yourself. Like, where can people find you? I've learned a ton. Would love to chat with you about our business, obviously. But like, tell us a little bit more about what you're doing. Tell us more about who you work with and how people can find you and learn more from your wisdom.
Cool. Thank you. So as everyone's probably heard, I spent the first 20 years of my career across a number of like B2C and B2B businesses. Got very lucky. Was part of 2 acquisitions and 2 IPOs, and really came to the place where I really wanted to try to do something on my own, and just felt really passionate that I wanted to help founders build a customer experience that they're proud of, they don't worry about, and their customers love. So those are the 3 things I work on. And so I primarily work with e-commerce businesses doing over 20 million a year revenue, or SaaS businesses doing over $1 million a year ARR, either on their customer experience or their customer success. I'm on LinkedIn. My website is Bair Consulting. So Bair is BAIR, bairconsulting.co. So you can you can request information on there, shoot me a DM on LinkedIn. I'm on Twitter and all the other handles, but answer to any of them. And so if you're a founder or a senior leader today, just like not feeling great about your customer experience or your customer success programming, I'd love to help you make that better.
Incredible. Sean, anything we missed?
I mean, I need another hour to keep asking questions. So I think I saw on the site it's $290 an hour, but you have to do 5 hours minimum. So I think we're just going to pony up a quick grand here and keep going for the day.
Incredible.
Thanks. That was fun.
Yeah, Michael, thank you so much for coming on. And yeah, we'll put everything in the show notes, but thanks for spending time with us.
It was great meeting you both, and hopefully do it again soon.